Hello and welcome to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. A reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review our show. I'm your host, Wolu, and I'm joined by producer and co-host Alex Wong. Raptors lost on Friday. Raptors won on Saturday. What's your vibe like? What's your vibe? I feel like this is going to be a vibe-heavy kind of show.
Vibe is TBD this week, man. Vibe is TBD. I think coming off that loss against Brooklyn, nice bounce back against the Orlando Magic. But let's be clear, man. It's the Orlando Magic. Like, you're supposed to beat them. And I think, the matchup against Boston tonight, Lakers are playing really well right now.
AD's on fire.
AD's on fire. So two really important games. I think these are the games that are going to tell us where the Raptors are at. And like a quarter way through the season, I think it's time to start, figuring out what the expectations are for this team. They've been so up and down, right?
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of talk about comparisons to last year, how they were playing at the similar pace, being around 500 and then eventually finishing with 48 wins. But I don't think it can be a one-to-one comparison, right? When you talk about players-only meetings and, the way that they've played and all of that stuff, I don't think we can just look at it and say that they're going to just pick it up suddenly. Like, we need to see it.
Can we be honest with ourselves? Expectations changed.
Sure.
Like I think more than anything else, we need to acknowledge that on the face of it. Once you do it once, everyone expects you to do it to the next step. And I think that was the expectation for the team. And that's not to say the team can't take it to the next step, but like that is the expectation, right? And so at least at the start of the season, they got out to a decent start. And then Pascal went down. He was so clearly their best player. Then so many players got sick and also injured at the same time. So you had excuses on the table. I don't think people were really slamming them too hard for that. It was more just like, how do you get by? But now that everyone's back, everyone's like mostly healthy. You have your regular starting five guys healthy, although one of them in Gary's coming off the bench. You need to start making that push, making that run. I think a win tonight here against Boston, it seems unlikely, but at the same time, if that's the kind of expectation coming into the season was that, you would win maybe one round, you would push your team ahead to another step. You would sort of get a little bit older and the guys will gel and guys will get healthier, which was all the things that we sort of cited last season in terms of like why this year will be even better for them. And you see growth in certain players. This tonight will be a very, very good, step in that direction, because coming into the season, when you look at a game like this, you would have expected to win it. You would have expected, even if Boston's really good, that you're on the second half. They're on the second half of back-to-back. You're at home. You have most of your main guys healthy. You expect to win it. But right now, it's very hard to, as you pointed out, very hard to know what to expect from the Toronto Raptors, who, let's be real, like that Orlando Magic game, the only thing you really need to say about that one is that OG, threw down a 360 or tried to throw down a 360 in traffic. That's how easy of a game it was. That game doesn't count for anything, right? It counts as a win, sure, but I'm focused on what happened in Brooklyn. I'm focused on what happened in New Orleans. And to be honest, there's been multiple letdown games this season to the point where you don't know exactly what to expect from this team, which, again, there's tons of time, but you need to start delivering. And I think that it's almost refreshing in that sense to hear that the team had a players-only meeting, because, like, you need to sort of talk about some of this stuff. Like, you can't really solve a problem without acknowledging in the first place.
Yeah, I think it's refreshing, but at the same, I guess on the flip side, it's a little bit concerning too to know that this was something that the team needed to do. But I mean, I guess you had no choice after those two games against New Orleans.
I mean, I'd be judgmental of the team if they were just like, all right, I guess that happened. We gave up 81 points in 2 first quarters. Yeah, that's cool.
It's wild to me too, because they were coming off 2 really impressive games to me before that.
Sure, yeah.
Right? Like even the win at home against, what was it? It was Dallas and Cleveland, right?
Yep.
Like, I thought the Cleveland win was really solid. I know Cleveland was missing a couple of players, but you're able to see, what you expect from this Raptors team. And then for them to come out the way they did against New Orleans, you would expect a response against Brooklyn, and you got exactly the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And, another 40-plus points allowed in the first quarter. Like, that was just embarrassing on Friday, right? Like, they were trailing by, 36 in the first half?
36 in the first half. The Raptors went to a zone defense 2 minutes into the game. How do you change your defense 2 minutes into the game? That's how badly you were getting beat. And, of course, the main game plan for the whole game was not let KD shoot. And what happened? The first 3 possessions, KD was either able to find the open man directly for an assist because the rotations weren't there. And then after that, he was able to get free for 2 drives. Like that's exactly the game plan. The number one thing is don't let KD shoot, not don't let KD score. Trap him, double team him, and it just wasn't there. And then they had to go to the zone. And I mean, look, at least they showed some fight in coming back. But I think I like the idea that they showed some fight in the locker room afterwards, because that's not one of those losses you just let go and forget about it. It's not one of those like, hey, some nights it's not going to be your night. That's the Raptors didn't show up for the second night in a row, and their standards that this team and this organization hold itself to. And you'd expected to see the veteran leaders speak up on that, even though some of those veteran leaders themselves aren't producing, right? It's not like we've seen, Fred perform great of late. If anything, Fred's actually been one of the bigger issues in terms of his, struggles with the scoring. Thad obviously hasn't been contributing that much, although to be honest, that's just because Nick's not really using him. But Thad didn't really have a lot of points. But those are still the veteran voices you want to hear from, in addition to Pascal, in those kind of tough moments. So I liked hearing the fact that the team had some accountability.
Yeah, so let's get into the players only meeting, because I know a couple of players shared their thoughts on it afterwards. So the meeting took place after the Brooklyn game in the locker room, and it was led by Fred, Pascal, and Thad. And Fred told Josh Lewenberg, he said, quote, "Nobody really likes to be harping, yelling, cussing, or fussing around here. So I think some things just go unsaid, and there are times when you need to say it out loud. Let people know what our standards are around here and just tighten the ship a little bit. We're not going to win all the games. We know that, but there's certain ways that you want to play every night, and those 2 games were just unacceptable."
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, exactly right. I mean, I think, I think this is not a team that, as Fred's pointing out, that they really do get on each other that much, right? And Nick, I was at the coach's seminar where he sort of explained his coaching philosophy, something like that, to a lot of novice coaches. And one thing he sort of talked about was doesn't like to say a lot after the game. It's too emotional, right? It's actually much better to watch the film and then come back the morning after, whether that's shoot around or practice, and then deliver a more precise and more measured comment. Then he's not a guy who after the game comes in and screams at the team, right? In short, Nick's not doing a react pod after games, right? He's looking at the film, and I think that's his approach. But I think in a game like that, like, yeah, you need to actually have those things be said out loud. Like, people should be upset. That game was so poor as a consumer product, right? Like, again, this is ultimately what this thing is about, right? You're supposed to keep people at the television, you're supposed to keep people in the arena, and produce something entertaining. There was nothing entertaining about that game, to go down 36 in the first half and to lose in all aspects of that. So it's good. And I think the one thing people will say, because I've been hearing this a lot now, it's just like Fred has in no position to speak because he's not performing well. And no one would say Fred is performing well. He's performing very poorly as well, right? And, you could make excuses and all that kind of stuff. I don't think people are trying to hear it, although I think there is some real tangible truth behind that. But, I mean, whatever, right? People don't want to hear it. People don't want to hear it. That's fine. It's still his job, just like it's his job to like knock down open threes, which right now he's not knocking them down. You don't want him to stop shooting open threes because that's his job. It's his job to lead on this team. And so I'm happy that he spoke out, even though it's hard to obviously hear from a guy who's shooting really poorly, but that's not the point specifically here. The point isn't that the Raptors are losing because Fred's shooting poorly. The point is the Raptors are losing grip of the rope right from the start of the game, giving up 40 points.
Yeah.
And that could happen tonight, by the way. That could easily happen tonight against the Celtics. Right? They're the best offensive team in the league right now. And when you look at their metrics, like the whole team is basically shooting like Steph. So, you could give up 40 again if you're not focused. So we'll see if the message really truly clicked in tonight, rather than against an Orlando Magic team that, I mean, come on, man, that team sucks.
I think too is interesting, talked about the standards that have been set around here and just letting people know, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why Fred, aside from the fact of his tenure here with this team, is that he's been here and he's been part of setting that culture for this team, right? Like going back to, before the championship years, the championship year and the year after that. And now you have a roster of younger guys, and there's a clear divide on this team in terms of the age and experience of the guys, right? And there's a lot of guys in the rotation that are younger that weren't here for that. So I think it's important for them to, like you said, have those conversations, because standards have been set around here, right? And
no doubt.
Like he said, like, it's not about winning every game. Like, you go up against a team like a Boston, like, it's going to be a really difficult challenge, even if they're coming, on the second half of a back-to-back. it's just, you know, the unacceptable things, like the unacceptable things of like effort and all the things that I feel like we've been talking about the last couple weeks,
Yeah.
right? Those are the things that I feel like need to get cleaned up.
Yeah. And again, like, especially with a guy like Fred, like, I think the reason why his voice should carry weight in the room is not necessarily because of what his true shooting percentage is or what, specifically he's been shooting of late. It's the fact that he's gotten through his career as a guy who used to stay across the street at the Fairmount, not knowing if he's going to get cut or not before training camp, right? And then becoming the fourth-string point guard on the team, and then making his way up through the D League, winning the D League championship, and then eventually carving out a spot in the rotation through undrafted, then contributing to the championship, then stepping up in a bigger role, then making All-Star. Like, there's a history and a track record there that I hope that people can respect. I think the fan base probably respects it, but I think, some of the people in that room, maybe they weren't there with him for some of that stretches, and that's fine. Like, NBA rosters change really quickly, but I think, regardless, I think he's right to call it out, and I just hope we see it tonight. Because again, like, you know what, all the bad vibes and everything like that, like, you know what, if they come out and they deliver a win, what are we going to be saying here tomorrow? Well, you're not going to be here, but me and Blake will be here talking about how great the Raptors are and how they're putting it together. Right? It could change that quickly, but at the same time, you have another bad performance. People are going to start really looking sideways at this team. And you know what? To be honest, like, it's the vibe around the team is not great. It's not great.
Listen, when you have a players-only meeting a quarter way through the season and coming off those 2 blowout losses.
When else have we even had Raptors players-only meetings? I understand, like, people will say, well, people, we don't hear everything reported. That's fine.
Sure.
But, like, do you remember other discord on the team?
No.
Like, there's Tampa. Tampa was discordant. Right?
Yeah,
but that was different.
That a word? Yeah. No, Tampa definitely. I don't even remember anything last year. I think last year, even when the team was struggling.
No.
I think you were pointing to things that were just reasonable in terms of like Pascal working himself back from injury.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys, and I was like, there were some roster deficiencies in terms of the bench and all of that stuff. And yeah, no, I'm with you. I think, and like, listen. Like, they could have a really good performance tonight, but I think it's gotten to the point in the season where we're just going to need to see it for a stretch, right? Like, I don't think this is one of those things where, one good performance is going to kind of just clean everything up. Like, it's time for them to string together, multiple efforts, and I don't think that's a lot to ask for from this team. I mean, this team's been built on that identity of outworking, out hustling. You talk about like winning the possession battle and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And Fred was asked about it. If what the players only meeting is going to do, and he said we'll see. He said, "quote They always say yeah, nod their head, they're receptive when you have those tough conversations, but actions speak louder. So we'll see how we fare over these next couple of weeks. We haven't been able to put together any stretches of anything. So if we put together a couple of streaks, that'll show some maturity." And Thad Young pointed out, too, that one of the things that they need to do better, and I think we've talked about this over and over again, too, is just coming out and starting stronger, right?
Yeah.
Said when we throw the first punch, it makes us a completely different team, a better team. What do you think is, setting aside all the intangible stuff, effort, attention to detail, when you look at the way the starting lineup is right now, like what is the cause of all these slow starts? Like, are you seeing anything that's like, or like, do you think there should be like a lineup change, or like what is causing this team to get off to such slow starts?
Well, they've been changing the lineup. I think that the stat was that the Raptors went 10 straight games with a different starting.
They have
lineup.
the most starting lineups this season.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, if you haven't started on the Raptors this year, like, you really need to evaluate where your career's going. Because I'm serious. Like,
has Malachi started this year?
I think so.
Yeah, he must.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Didn't he start in the Pistons game?
Yeah.
So,
think so. Okay. Shouts to Malachi.
Shouts to Malachi. But no, but seriously though, it's like it's not just one thing, but I think it's mostly like their defensive execution and energy is just poor at the start of these games, right? It's also poor at the start of the third quarters as well. Like, those are the two moments that I'm really worried about the Raptors. As the game sort of wears on, they will turn it on eventually. And we even saw that against New Orleans and Brooklyn. Now, some of that is just like pride kicking in, and I hope they would feel more pride in their performance at the start of games as well. But, you got to start the game a lot stronger. I think, some of it is also just you're starting games with Christian Koloko, who's a rookie. And, it's not to say that Christian's at fault for any of this stuff. But at the same time, you look at the performance against Brooklyn, there was like 4 or 5 plays just in the first quarter alone where Pascal beat 2 guys and then like dished it off to Koloko either for layups or for an open 3, and he just wasn't able to convert. And those are the kind of deals where it's just like, well, that kind of deflates your team a little bit, right? Because you've done the hard work to create an easy shot, but your guy is not experienced enough right now to finish that easy shot. So again, I don't blame him because he's a rookie. Like no one expected him to even start or play this many minutes, but that's a problem. And then you take Gary out of the lineup, which I can't imagine Gary's very happy at all. Being demoted in a contract year, that doesn't sound like something that you or I would be thrilled about. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't be thrilled about this either. He's approaching the game the same way, and he's still taking the shots. But I think he's more used to sort of being in the starting group as well. And so I don't know. It's a whole confluence of factors, really.
It's a whole new game.
It's a whole new game. I don't know. Again, the vibes just aren't great. Like if we go through the roster and really think about who's happy on this team, because I feel like that's actually will be a worthwhile exercise.
Okay, let's do it. Pull up the roster.
Okay, so let's say who's specifically happy on this team. I think Pascal's happy.
Sure.
Right? He's put in a lot of work. He's been the number one option. He gets the minutes. He's stepping up. He's taking more accountability to the team. He's talking to the team. He's part of the leadership in terms of the players only meetings. So I think he's happy.
He's like a 9.
Right.
I don't think Fred's happy. I don't think Fred's happy with the rest of the team.
I don't think he's happy with himself, to be honest. Too.
Okay.
I think he knows he can play a lot better than this, and he's been willing to take accountability for that. Right. Mm-hmm. But who else on the team is thrilled? I think Christian should be pretty thrilled. He's playing a lot more minutes than really he should be at this point in his career for a winning team.
I think OG's there too. OG's been playing his role.
I think having a great season. You can say OG's happy. Sure. Yeah. Although, by the way, for these players only meetings, why is OG not expected to speak up a little bit too? I mean, Pascal and Fred have only been in the league one more year than them.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No, so I feel like that would carry some weight, especially with the younger guys.
Yeah, that's true.
I think OG's closer to that group.
Yeah, but I think the thing is
not a responsibility on his front.
Yeah, I think OG's one of those types where people will tell you he just leads it a different way. I don't think
that works when it's Kawhi, man. That doesn't work when you're OG.
I don't know. Like I've just never heard OG been vocal.
Okay.
About it.
Right.
So, but I'm with you though.
Do you think Otto's happy signing off a championship team to come to this one, and then there's all these issues right away?
Yeah, I mean, hard for Otto too. I mean, he's only been in the lineup for like a few games too, right? It's been tough for him.
Gary's, I mean, look, listen, it's not even speculation. It's sort of putting together the pieces, right?
Sure.
Gary can't be thrilled with the situation.
No, I think you can look at that one pretty straight up.
Malachi is, I mean,
has Malachi ever been happy?
Malachi is like almost like a prisoner on the Raptors.
Yeah.
Like when the Raptors picked up the option on him for the 4th year, that's like getting bail denied. No bail. That's what they said. No bail. Here's $4 million.
Oh God, is Nick happy?
I mean,
I don't think Nick's very happy with the team's effort.
Sometimes, like we're pregame, because the thing, like if you're a fan of the team and you consume the postgame interviews, you notice they're all postgame or they're from practice, right? You never hear the pregame availability, which I actually never understood why those weren't published, right?
Yeah.
But Nick will give some quotes in those pregame availabilities, like the last game that we were talking to him about for the Orlando game. Reporters asked like, "Hey, who are you going to start tonight?" And he's like, "Yeah, I don't remember. I guess JQ will let you know."
Oh, okay.
Like, I mean, I get it. It's like a tongue-in-cheek comment, but it's like no one's in the mood to laugh when you've just given up 81 points in your last 2 first quarters and you just lost in that fashion.
I said there's nothing to smile about.
There's nothing to smile about right now. Tell us what the starting 5 is. That's a minimum what you could be doing. And then also, this is another quote that Nick gave pregame. This one I didn't really see catch the rounds, but this is something when he was asked about Scottie that he said before the Brooklyn Nets game.
Well, that's what I said to you guys in the preseason. That's your challenge, right? Like it is for all of us, to be honest, when you're going through the grind of it, and your first time around, man, everything's new and different in every game and every opponent and all that stuff. And now you gotta, it becomes more job-like than it is more just, I don't know. Just becomes more job-like, and you gotta learn how to grow with that professionally a little bit.
Do you hear what he just said? He just said to the media that the job is becoming playing for the Raptors after you won Rookie of the Year is becoming job-like, and you got to learn how to grow with that professionally. That's not something you hear from the coach that often.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very interesting comment.
It's pretty blunt.
No, I love to sit the two of them in a room. Love to sit all these guys in a room. And
ask honestly,
them real questions.
Because our year-end reviews are coming up, and sometimes you get asked those questions depending on what company you work at, where they sort of ask you your satisfaction, scores. I remember at Yahoo they used to ask you things like, "Do you have a best friend in the company?" Score on a scale of 1 to 5. I'd be curious to hear some of those results. From
for
the
sure.
Raptors in this sense.
Listen, it's kind of like doing this show. Last year everything felt new. you know, but you just got to maintain a certain level of professionalism in year 2.
Yeah.
Even if it starts to feel like work.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying though. Like, who is specifically happy with how this season is turning out for them? And honestly, I don't think you can get to 5, and that includes the coach.
No, I think you're right.
So they got to turn this thing around. They really have to turn this thing around. I think there are good expectations for this team because they showed that they're deserving of expectations last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
People are like, you gotta expect less from Scotty. Remember, we even had this discussion last week. We just had to remove your expectations on Scotty, treat him like a rookie again. Why? Who says after you win Rookie of the Year that we got to treat him like a rookie again?
Yeah, I think.
You know what I mean? No, there's expectations because they're good enough to deserve expectations, and then you got to see whether or not they are held to those, right? And to be honest, like that's the big thing with this team. Like, get on a run. You have talent here. Find a cohesive way to play. Find your roles, accept those roles, and just go about it professionally.
Yeah, I think the most damning thing would be to lower those expectations and have no expectations. If anyway,
that's how you got to be the Orlando Magic.
Yeah,
you
if
think
anything,
anyone was complaining about the Magic in the other night? Like, oh man, Paolo, what a terrible game. They probably were like, oh, you know what's cool? Bol. Like,
yo, Bol is cool.
Haven't seen a halftime act like that since Red Panda.
Oh my God, you stole. Oh my
know,
God,
I
you
stole your
didn't even
joke,
execute
I'm
it properly,
sorry,
man.
bro.
No, I think it's like
It's such a good joke.
no, it's like you look at the Raptors as a development team, and you know it's kind of like you know when we're like growing up, and you know parents have expectations of you, you know, especially Asian parents always think their kids are gifted when they're like 8 years old, and they get like a 90 in math, and then at some point, you know, when my dad takes me to U of T to take the exam and it goes terribly, then they remove the expectations because you no longer expect them to grow on that curve, right?
It's okay, man. Gifted kids end up on this show too.
So I think that's the thing about when I say like not having expectations or lowering expectations on Scotty or even the team overall, that's a very damning thing because they haven't earned those expectations. We came in this season very excited, talking about this being a team building on 48 wins.
Yep.
Right.
Yep,
I think
yep.
I had them winning like 56 or something like that.
Yeah.
But you know you got to adjust. You know the Alex tax is usually add like 10 wins to the realistic expectations. But I think overall the fan base was expecting the team to make this leap, and it just hasn't happened so far.
Yeah.
And it's more concerning how it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Yeah,
you
for
can be. You can be a 12-11 team and be playing well and be able to see the silver linings, but right now I don't see it if you're just looking at this 23 game sample.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's fair.
And I think the season's been split into 3 segments. Like the first segment was that first like 7 games, right? You know, people flagged it as a tough stretch, right? They're playing Cleveland, 2 against Miami, Brooklyn, 2 against Philly. They had Atlanta as well.
Yeah.
And the Raptors got through that stretch.
Yeah, they were fine. They were
right?
like 5 and
yeah,
they
were
5 and 4, 5 and 3.
Yeah, they were fine. And I felt like overall, if you look back at the season so far, that's probably the best stretch in terms of how they've played. Because I think they played really competitively in all the games.
We weren't even thrilled with how they played. We were thrilled with how Pascal personally was performing. But it was like, wow, Fred's really taking a step back. And OG was a little inconsistent, and now he's gone back into a groove.
Right. So like
and
that
then it was
stretch,
like, Scotty's been quiet.
Yeah, that stretch, maybe I give it like a B minus or something like that. And then Pascal goes out and they go 5 and 5 in those 10 games.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of concerning losses in there, right? And maybe those losses should have been more concerning, like getting blown out at an OKC. But
at least you can kind of justify that.
But that's
like
what I'm saying.
The whole team's sick. And
that's what I'm saying. You get masked by all these different things that are real excuses, right?
Yeah, there's no more excuse now.
But now there's no excuse because now here's the third stretch of Pascal coming back, and everybody was excited for the team to get healthy again because just 2 weeks ago, the injury report was like 8 to 10 people deep, like every night, right? But now, tonight only Wancho's the only player, aside from Precious and Otto, who seem a little bit more long-term, who are on the injury report. Like, I really think these 2 games are really important for the Raptors this week.
Yeah.
Like Boston and LA. And I think, like you, I think expectations are lowered in the way where I'm not saying, like, they have to win both games. Like, I just want to see how they play.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is the part of the season where obviously you have that one of the, key dates in the NBA schedule is December 15th, which is when most of the contracts signed in the previous year, those deals become available to be traded once again, right? And so you do see more movement around this time, right? When you look back, even historically, I remember the Rudy Gay trade was around this time, December 12th. One of the happiest days of my life. No, I'm kidding. But it turned out to be, though. I wasn't a fan of Rudy either. But, like, this is the time of and, of course, this is a very different moment. Like, I'm not saying at all that the Raptors right now are anything close to that team with Rudy at the start of the 2013 season. But at the same time, like you got to make some evaluations. You do see more presence from the management team, right? Like they're around a lot more, and you got to be you got to know where this thing is going, right? Do you see a clear identity for the Raptors? And to be honest, why do we even need to see a clear identity for the Raptors? I thought they solved that last year, right? What was all the excitement in the Rico Hines runs? Remember when Paul George was sort of like, at the end of each session, Rico gets the guys to sort of gather in a circle.
Oh,
and
he's like, if you guys don't start 7-3, I'm gonna be shocked.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Paul George was saying that kind of stuff, and I think other people were seeing it too. So how did it go from that to where it is now? Right? You cannot just say you're not disappointed. Like you can acknowledge it's a work in progress, but at the same time, they should be ahead of where they are right now, and that's why you throw down a gauntlet and say like, "Yo, we need to go out there and win against the Boston Celtics tonight." That's a kind of statement, kind of performance that you would need, and then you follow that up with a statement performance against the Lakers, and all of a sudden it's all and then we do the happiness rankings and everyone's happy.
No, I want that. So, I want the 2 good performances, and I want them to go to Orlando, where they're going to play 2 straight games there and win both 2 games and take care of business.
Yeah,
it's time to start taking care of business, man.
Yeah.
Like, the standings are very bunched up right now just because of, I think, just the way the season is played out. But there's still a path for them to get to the expectations that we set for them at the start of the season.
Yeah.
But it's time to get going, man. And now it's time for Between the Lines, brought to you by Bet Rivers. It's a whole new game. The Raptors are -1 point. They're 1-point favorites tonight at home against the Boston Celtics. Will, who do you like and why?
Well, after our recent discussion about how the team's performed of late, I'm not going to show confidence in this team and say that they're going to get the result done. I mean, Jason Tatum is averaging 30. Jaylen Brown just destroyed the Nets. This is a team that even without some rotation players are very formidable. We'll see how the Raptors guard them. If it's going to be the usual, which is trap Jason Tatum and let Jaylen Brown cook a little bit, or even trap both of those guys and let some of the other guys shoot. I mean, turns out, hey, the Boston Celtics are an amazing shooting team. Like, everyone knows this about them, right? And the Celtics in the past, when they played under Brad Stevens, when they played under Ime Udoka, and we'll see now with Joe Mazzulla, but chances are very good that they know where the Raptors' weaknesses are. I mean, the Celtics were one of the first teams to truly exploit the gap in the Raptors' defense, which is corner threes. We saw that in a very painful bubble series, right? How many times did the guys get open in the corners for threes? For God's sakes, Marcus Smart had a 5-3 game. Okay, so I think they'll continue to look for those, and the Celtics have really good corner 3-point shooters. So right now, until the Raptors show me something, I'm going with the Celtics. I hate to say this, I despise the Celtics, but if I had to put my money on it, I put it on the Celtics.
Yeah, and if you don't want to bet on this game, I recommend the Milwaukee Bucks -9.5 at the Orlando Magic.
Okay,
a team, Milwaukee, a team that takes care of business. And the Orlando, stop trying to tell me Orlando, Toronto is fun this year. Not fun.
No, there was nothing fun about that game.
Watch this 3 times in eight nights, Yeah. But this is the professionalism they talk about,
Well, yeah.
Even when it feels like work, you got to do it.
How is this supposed to
me
feel
on the whole
like
Magic
work?
game, bro.
When I went to the Score to work and write like aggregated blogs at 2 a.m. in the morning when I was 21, I didn't feel like that was
story.
Work.
Yeah, that's
feels
cool.
like work.
Anyways, we got Lindsay Dunn joining us in studio in the second segment. Believe both of you were at the Giants of Africa event.
That's right. That did not feel like
night.
work. That was actually a really cool event. It was just, it was a really good time. So we'll recap it. But we're going to take a quick break right here. I'm your host, Will Luke. That's Alex Wong. You're listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Welcome back to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Will Lou. Still continue to be joined by co-host Alex Wong, and we are joined by special guest Lindsay Dunn of City News. Lindsay, what's going on?
Well, great. My mic is on. I was hitting buttons because I'm like, I didn't clear this beforehand if I had to do anything.
No,
but I'm
it's
pumped.
this one. Don't worry.
That song gets me going every time, and a lot of people don't know. I actually walked down the aisle to that and
Amazing.
got crazy looks, but it's like best song ever. Not overselling it. It's a good time.
Yeah,
Are you not happy right now?
For people listening to the pod,
Oh, yes.
because they won't play the music because of the rights.
Everybody
It was from the
get up,
Space
it's
Jam
time to slam
soundtrack,
it.
Quad
Yeah.
City DJs.
No, but it is kind of funny letting people know that Lindsay walked down the aisle to the generic Raptor Show jingle. That actually is kind of funny, to be
Let's leave it
honest.
at
Oh, yeah,
that.
that
Let's
is
leave it
pretty
at that.
That jingle's kind of grown on me. You know,
What?
it's one of those, the music that we have.
You know,
Yeah.
honestly, I don't know what that thing sounds like if you had to make
No,
me guess right now.
No, because it's from one of those.
Wait, can you hum it?
I don't want to do that. But it's from.
But you rap on
Come
the
on,
show,
yeah.
but you won't
Come
on.
hum our
No,
theme
Now's the
song.
time.
I can't do it. I don't.
Time to
I don't
shine.
respond well to peer pressure.
Okay.
Yeah, I just walk
Then
away.
don't do it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Damn, man. Yeah. No. No, it's growing on me because we picked them. We picked them from like a generic site, right?
Yeah.
And I think you picked it actually. Yeah. There we go. They're explaining it for us.
Right.
It's
that's how
nice
it
and
goes.
comforting. Many Raptors fans fall asleep to that, man. Apparently.
Maybe they'll walk down the aisle to it now.
Yo.
You know what?
Could've
I'm
been
challenging.
fun.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Somebody walk down the
You know
aisle to
somebody
this.
will.
Yeah.
I mean,
That'll be sick.
it could be me.
Yeah.
You know, it's probably most likely would be me.
Yeah. Don't do that.
I'm not gonna do that. No. All right.
Anyways,
So
Lindsay's here.
over the weekend, we were able to. Well, I mean, over the weekend, it was literally yesterday, like a few hours ago.
Yeah.
I
And
guess.
clarify the term "we." Yeah.
We
The
as
two
in
of you, yeah.
me
Someone
and
slacked off
Lindsay.
this weekend.
Alex was in Markham for all weekend apparently.
Yeah.
Once the Chun Chung deals came off, he also came off. I'm not even kidding. But yeah, we went to the
Just
Giants of
Robin.
Africa gala, which was super awesome to see. You know, it was. It's the first time I've went, Lindsay. I'm curious to know if that's also the first time you've been, and what your impressions were from last night.
I've been to it before. I didn't go last year. It was like peak COVID. I don't know if you remember what happened. A lot of people got it after that,
Right.
and it was. But this was the first time it's been held at the venue in history in Toronto, and like it was beautiful. And I've been to it before, and I love like the music and the speeches. It's really moving. But it was the first time at history, and I thought they did a phenomenal job. And I just thought like I love that Candace Parker was there and sat down and interviewed Masai, and it was just some great moments. And he saw some emotions happening from people to talk about how Giants of Africa and those basketball camps that they've had over on the continent have changed so many people's lives. Like I got a little misty. It was nice, but I'm not going to complain. It was an easy work assignment.
It was an easy
What
work
did you think?
assignment.
It was your first time.
So I mean, first off, I've always like really just admired the work that they've done with Giants of Africa over the years, and getting to know some of the people involved in the organization now too. Is just like it's really kind of confirmed like. Because sometimes I don't know, maybe I'm just naturally cynic, right? But like sometimes when you think about like charitable foundations, you're like, well, you know, where is this specifically going? When you see the work that these people do, it's heartwarming when you hear some of the testimony from, you know, former campers who were there, or people who are working those camps, and the people who are involved in coaching, you know, these young players. And you know, again, like I'm the same as you. Like I get misty eyed. Like I remember watching like even Giants of Africa when they did like a documentary about this. I think it debuted at TIFF. Yeah, and I went to go see that, and I remember being quite emotional there too, because again, I think you get the sense from Masai that like, you know, the Raptors is like such a big thing, and for almost anybody who's involved with the Raptors, or even us covering the team, like it's such a big thing for us. It's like our lives. But then for Masai, like there's also a greater purpose that he serves, which is to provide opportunities. And that part is really beautiful, because I think for almost everybody in the NBA, their goal is just to keep their job in the NBA. And for Masai to hold a higher purpose while also being excellent at his job is, I don't know, it's just something, you know, to be proud of as an organization in terms of what they stand for.
Yeah, it's super cool. And they're going to be celebrating Nelson Mandela tonight at the game.
Yes.
The Raptors-Celtics game. But I think people want to know, too, what did you pull up in terms of your fit?
Oh,
yeah.
Fit check. You know, I mean, like, I would say fit-wise, it would be standard for Lindsay, almost dressed down for Lindsay. But for me, I had to, you know, because the backstory here is there was another Raptors team event at History this year. It was
Yes.
for Nick Nurse's.
The Neo concert.
Okay, yes, it is the Neo concert, but it was
Which
technically.
I didn't stay for. I've never told you. I didn't
What?
stay to watch Neo.
Why?
I just wanted to see
Did
your
you like have
reaction.
another commitment the next day, or did you just like what was the
No,
excuse? You're not a Neo fan?
No, I love Neo. It's
Okay.
just
Yeah, name 5 of his songs right now.
all of the good ones.
Oh.
Thanks for calling me out on that. I absolutely could not. But I wanted to tell you I didn't stay. Like usually sometimes my days start at 4 or 5 a.m.
Right.
And I tried to push it, but I left at like 10.
No, that's
Okay.
And I'm
respectful.
sorry. And so then I lived through your Instagram stories and saw that I missed a great party.
Listen.
I'm not kidding. Alex was on his knees at one point.
Oh, I saw
saluting.
video.
No,
Oh.
I don't. No, don't post that one.
Why not?
But yeah, no, Lindsay's at every event. Here's the thing people don't know about Lindsay too. Like, you
Yeah.
know,
Oh, yeah. Hardest working person
if
in
Pascal's doing a charity event, it's stacked, you know, or a sponsored event. Didn't you talk to Delano recently about his new
I'll be talking to
collab,
him again
right?
this
With
week.
the
He's doing
Bay.
something
Yeah.
fantastic in the
Shoot,
community.
Lindsay was at the Raptors 9:05 game this morning.
That's right.
At
Before-
Scotiabank?
I
before
have to
work.
say that was the most energy I've ever felt on a Monday morning, and I kind of can't hear because there's like 15,000 kids are screaming,
Right.
having the best time of their life. Like I think they're
That's a
more
great
excited to
field
see
trip.
the mascot. Right? I did not have that growing up at all. We went to a farm, and I'm not joking.
Right. You grew up in
I
Regina, right?
I did.
Yeah.
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 Sorry, stereotyping that, but it
Yeah.
totally
It's
happened.
okay.
The field trip was to a farm.
Wow. Because if you grew up in Toronto, like you get to go to things like the Marlies game, which is kind of similar to
Yes.
this, right? Going to 905, going to Medieval Times is also a great field
yeah.
trip. Yeah.
Medieval times. I love it. I honestly went there probably the first week I moved to Toronto because
Really?
I heard about it. But the thing with like going to a 905 game, you had pretty much all of the coaching staff sitting courtside. You had Bobby Webster, you had Van Vliet, Koloko, and
Well, Fred's part of the coaching
Siakam.
staff.
I
at
know.
this
I was like,
point.
right. Sometimes Siakam is too.
Right. That's true. Yeah.
But I was like, what an experience. But it was so loud and the energy was wild.
Yeah.
They didn't pull out the win though, but hey.
Yeah.
It's the Raptors thing right now sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know. The two franchises are mirroring each other, I think, at the moment. The 905 are usually really, really good. Like, they're almost always, like, first in their conference. And, you know about that. Right?
Oh yeah, of course, man. Where's the,
Name 5 of the hits right now.
show,
905
yeah.
hits.
show to Reggie Perry, man. He's still on the squad.
Yes.
He is.
Anyways.
He's come back.
No, I think it's cool, like talking about how you obviously go to these events and cover like what makes it still like, exciting for you. As you kind of called me out for my disappearing act this weekend, and we were talking in the first half too. Nick's comments about how sometimes even like playing basketball can feel like work. Like a lot of this stuff can feel like work sometimes too, right? Like what gets you excited still to kind of pursue these stories and go to all these events?
Okay, this is going to be the mushiest answer, but it's so genuine. I'm being honest. Growing up in Saskatchewan, all I ever wanted to be was an NBA player growing up. And I don't know why it didn't happen, but for some reason I just didn't make it there. And
Right.
I never knew it was even possible to like move to Toronto or see an NBA game. And the fact that I'm here and I get it, I love an underdog story too. So like there's some players on this team that we want to see exceed and you want to see what they can do. And I love going to every game. I love hearing like the noise of the sneakers, of the ball bouncing, what the story is going to be like. So many people not counting on the Raptors to pull out a win tonight, but it's like, hey, they can still do it.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I'm also the person that's like, if a house is on fire and I'm in it, I'm like, it's still good. It'll like put itself out. But I love it. And when you go to those events, like Pascal does such amazing charitable work, or like Delano going back to the community, a lot of those things have impacted where they are today, and it will impact their game. You can see sometimes how they will help coach a player on there or how they pass a ball around. It impacts their game. And I think all of that adds to it. And then what they're doing away from the court also impacts their performance on the game. It all kind of goes together. And I'm excited every time I go, like so much so that I'm a little nervous because I can't keep my energy inside. So I'll either be sitting there really quiet because I'm like, this is going to be the best game ever. And I say that every time.
Wow.
I know. It's
That's
like
the same as me, actually.
but it's like I've been covering this team for 8 years, and I
Yeah.
felt that way every
That's
single
amazing.
time. And it's not like the players or anything that sometimes like I went to a game and I've never not been excited to be there. I even went there when I had food poisoning this year and I had a mask on. I'm like, it's still good. I just sit away from
Wow.
everybody. This is amazing.
Yeah.
The
No,
grind.
you two have a lot
Yeah,
in
I
common.
didn't spend the weekend in Markham.
Yeah. No, this is I don't know what's this. Yeah, this
kidding.
is the love of the game, man.
Yeah, it's
It's the love of the game,
magical.
Alex. You could learn a lot from this. No, I'm kidding.
But I'll say like we are fortunate because for the most part, this squad that's here right now,
yeah.
they're great to kind of interact with. Like, hey, sometimes OG will give you a one-word answer, but that's fun. I've been covering him since he's a rookie here. But a lot of the players and like coaching staff, you'll get a good answer from them, or they'll try to have a conversation, hey, depending on the game. But sometimes I feel like we're lucky. It could be worse.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
have any tips for Will of getting OG to open up? Because I'm trying to set up an interview with him, hopefully during the season. And like Will's talked to OG before, but I think we kind of know at
Once.
this point OG's just, a little different when it comes to interviews. Like what are the tips to kind of draw more out of him?
I don't know if you saw this, but I usually get one-word answers from him. And I asked him media day, and this clip kind of went viral. I asked him, like, what did you do? Because I was trying to loosen him up to get him to talk about something else.
This
I
is
tried.
the book that he apparently read?
I tried so hard. I'm like, hey, if I try something here, maybe we can work into getting a different answer. I'm like, what'd you do this summer? He's like, I went for a walk or read a book. I'm like, what book? He's like, I didn't read a book. But it was like, hey, that was more than one word response. But I've tried. I have no tips. Amy Audibert, who now, like we know, she works for the Heat. I called her the OG whisperer because she would be able to get answers out of him. So, like, maybe I'm going to defer the answer, deflect it to Amy, because I have not cracked that.
That's fair. I do appreciate
it's fun,
that.
Though.
Every single time we have serious reporters on the program, Alex asks for tips on reporting on my behalf because I am not a serious reporter.
Let's rewind. Did we call me a serious reporter? Thank you.
No, you're absolutely a serious reporter. And I think that's the thing, too. It's just like, I think in terms of your coverage of the Raptors, like you show more excitement and willingness to sort of tell the off-court stories about sort of what they're doing. And I think that that's almost part of it where it doesn't get covered enough, like what people do. Like, for example, with Pascal and this foundation, and obviously you know this, but just telling the audience that, like, he put up so much of his own money to buy laptops, and he handed out like hundreds of these to kids in an underserved community so that they can get a head start in terms of coding, right? Because obviously we know that, especially as sort of, the age of technology moves on and things like that, like this is going to be one of the more profitable, more stable careers. And until you sort of have the barriers removed from getting to those spots, you need those actual tools to sort of help you, catch up in life. And I think for Pascal to do that and put on those events, I mean, like you're there, you can be honest about it. Like how many media is there, especially during the time of the summertime where a lot of people are on vacation. I know myself, I was definitely on vacation. Like, where's the coverage for some of that stuff? And I think you, out of everyone in the city, has put the most effort towards that. And I think you deserve your flowers or your credit or however you want to call it. But for me, it's just respect.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I just think it's so wonderful because we don't see it often with athletes. A lot, they don't have to give back to the community. But when you have people like Pascal, and he invests so much time into his foundation, I want to be there. And half the time, honestly, it's on my day off. And I was like, I'm going to come in because it should be showed what they're doing. Like, and sometimes they're not even asking for coverage. It's like, I want to show this. I want to show what you're doing and how it's impacting so many people. And it's like they're giving out free sneakers, or like with Fred, they're giving out meals to people that, they may not be able to have like food stability. And hey, I know some people might think that's fluffy, but I just think it's great what they're doing in the community, and it has to be showcased because other than that, they also put them on this pedestal thinking that's all they do is like buy $1 million things and do this. But they're giving back to the community and they're trying. Like, I have so much respect for Pascal for that.
Yeah.
No, I think that stuff is really important. Like, as much as like, say, like in the first segment of the show, obviously we're here to talk about the team and like all this stuff on the court. And sometimes that can be, sometimes that's not the, like when the team is struggling, right? Like, you have to be kind of tough on these guys and things like that. But I think sometimes people that are so into basketball and following the team kind of forget about these other aspects, right? And I think it's important.
Human.
Yeah, but anyways, back to on the court,
Let's
we were talking about the Raptors, just how inconsistent they've been and having that players only meeting. What do you make of the vibe of the Raptors right now?
Well, it's interesting because Fred the other day said, I think the wording was like, we suck. It's like, it was an honest response, and you could tell. And I can't remember if it was Pascal. Somebody said they're not happy. And it was like, at first that we were actually hearing it from them because, the fans aren't happy.
Yeah.
For the most part. And like me, and I'm like, yeah, it's whatever. If you lose, we have to make a story out of it regardless. But you could tell that I feel like there's like a bit anxious because I think they're better than what we're seeing, and that for the whole season, people have been talking about them. But man, the injuries and the illnesses that they've been plagued with. The one thing that I've been curious about is like, when you guys think Otto Porter Jr. is going to play, and how will he impact it? Will he have enough time that he actually gels with them? Because that's like the storyline that keeps circling in my head, because Nick Nurse was asked about it the other day. Is there an update on him? And the response was no.
Yeah, Nick's been giving some flippant responses, I think. I think this is very clear to people who watch some of the interviews. But I think with Otto in particular, they just got to take care of his health, right? This is a player who has had a track record. You look at the way the Warriors are able to manage him. Like, he can clearly stay healthy and be productive, right? He literally contributed until deep into June last year, right? And at a high level. We saw him playing in key moments in the finals, right? So there is a way to keep him healthy. It's not like he's just like fundamentally broken, but you do need to be cautious with these things, right? And I think that they need to put in a plan where maybe he doesn't play back-to-backs. Maybe he doesn't play more than 20 minutes on a consistent basis, because that's just not necessarily what you expect from him. And that's not to say people should be disappointed with that. That's just the reality of certain guys, right? And, I do think that, there were moments, Robert, at the start of the season where I think the first game where Pascal went down and they went to Otto, and Otto made the big plays, but after the game, I remember him saying, he's like, yeah, I was asking Nick to pull me out, and Nick was saying no, right? And or maybe Nick was saying this about Otto, and Otto ended up hitting some big threes, but it's one of those things where it's just like, well, I mean, if that's sort of what he needs, especially as he's sort of recovering, then you got to be a little cautious with him. But I think he'd be a good piece, right? He's a guy who's sort of gone through all this kind of stuff, and he's another veteran piece to add to this core. And I think more than anything else, though, the core guys got to be better, right? I think you do need to see more consistency from Fred and from Scotty. I think OG and Pascal have held up their end of the bargain. Fred and Scotty are the two guys that need to sort of step up and be better and more consistent. Because when you look at the top four, those four guys can all give you really good performances, but when half of that is not necessarily there, and obviously Pascal was also missing just due to injuries, no fault of his own, but then you might have some struggles. But
yeah, definitely the vibe, though. Another thing is frustration. And I know you feel that with their answers and how they are on the court. And sometimes when they're missing a pass or a shot, you can actually see it on the court now, which is definitely developing more. And you're talking about the games earlier about how Boston and Lakers, and then your favorite Orlando-Toronto series again coming up. But a week from now,
Bowl times 5. Yeah.
A week from now, it'll be so interesting to see how they perform, because these next two games, I know you talk about it's I think kind of make or break, but not to that extent. But it's really going to see kind of where the character and the team is going to go, for my mind, because if this is where they are now with the frustration, 20-something games into that, and then you're losing these two, and then what's going to happen is how are they, what is the identity we always talk about? What are they going to come out of this like? Either they're going to be winning or it's going to be a rough ride.
Yeah, no, I want to be clear. I think these two games are really, really important. I really do.
Must win? Are they must wins, Alex?
They're not.
Don't give up 40 in the first quarter. Is that sad? That's the expectation so many people have.
Yeah, that my expectation isn't I don't need them to win both games. I just need to see them play, right? I just need to see them play to the level that they know they're capable of. And I know, Matt Devlin always tells him to not, freak out over the 82 games, right? Matt's always it's only one of 82. But I think at some point we have to place extra importance. And when the players are this frustrated and they've already had the players only meetings, and if you mentioned, if they don't come out and perform this week, I think the front office is probably frustrated too. And we know that they've always been a very patient group. But when it comes, you a couple months into the season now, you're heading to the trade deadline. You got to start thinking about what you want to do with this roster long term too, right?
Yeah.
By the way, Admiral Schofield. Yeah.
Wow, that's a deep hole.
That's because it's one of my favorite names, man.
Yeah. What position he played though?
It's a positionless game these days. So I think most guys.
Well played.
It's a whole new game.
I don't know if you know, but modern day basketball.
Weapon. I do not finish second.
We went there.
Modern day basketball. Yeah, we don't really say what positions guys play.
That's fair. Yeah.
Terrence Ross.
Can I hijack this and ask a question to you both?
Of course.
Yeah, of course. What?
It's not super fun, but it's just the other day when Jason Kidd was here with the Mavs, he was asked by a Toronto reporter, I think you guys were there, do you feel that you have a championship team? And he pretty much said no, not right now. So I'm asking you, looking at this roster that you're so optimistic about, if they were healthy, the potential that you could see?
I think they got to figure out how to get those top four guys going at once. I think there's got to be probably some structure introduced into that. I know Nick's very much on the side of I don't believe in roles. I like to be creative and inventive with everything, right? But it's just you know what? Give them all very defined roles, help them buy into all those roles, and then execute on a more consistent basis. Until we see that, it's hard to expect anything. It's probably what Jason Kidd was thinking about the Mavs as well. At least with the Mavs, they have a guy like Luka who, it can do so much for you. But the issue is they have no other guys on that team that really do anything for them on a consistent basis. But I think, for the Raptors, this should be the step up. And I think that, my question is what is that next step for Scotty Barnes? What's the expectation for him? Or how do they get Fred back to being an all-star level player? Because let's be honest, since he's been hurt last year around,
right now.
January, February, that time where the Raptors overextended him a little bit, his performance has been consistently bad. Not even consistently bad. He still has good moments, but it's his shooting percentages have been really, really low, in the 30s. So it's how do you get all those guys clicking at the same time? And I think when you do that, then the expectation is we have a different conversation about, could this team win a round? Could this team win 2 rounds? But until I see that cohesiveness, it's hard to say anything.
Yeah, right now the expectation is just have a good week.
The expectation is now
just want them to have
right
a good
now. It's
week.
just, can you beat the Celtics on your home court when they're on the second half of a back-to-back with like half their rotation available?
Sure, yeah. Caleb Houston, the Canadian. Orlando.
Yeah.
Did
How do
you
you
look
spell
that
Houston,
up? Yeah.
Houstan.
Nice.
Wow,
Look
nailed
at the
it.
Orlando
I'm
Magic
proud. Look
expert
at
over
you.
here.
Hello.
Wow.
We the North, baby.
Wow. They the South.
Wow. All right, we made it. Another show. We did it.
What do you mean we did it?
Oh,
Salute to Lindsay.
by the way, shouts to Lindsay's mom, Joyce.
That's
I know
right.
she's
Shout out Mama
like,
Dunn.
like we mentioned last week, she
Hi, Mom.
listens, watches the show a lot, and we got a chance to meet her
Might
at
as
the
well
arena.
shout out my husband. Shout out Justin, who's
Yeah.
also watching. He
Sh-
doesn't like
wow.
sports, but hey, what's up?
Shout out to
He's
Justin
like, who are
as
you
well.
talking about?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's it.
Okay.
Appreciate you coming in, Lindsay.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we're out of time. So that does it for us today. I'm your host, Willow. You've been listening to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review the show. Reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Thanks again to producer and co-host Alex Wong. Thanks to Lindsay Dunn, our board producer Derek Brendale, and Frank Baraska for helping us with the YouTube stream. We'll be back tomorrow. Please, Raptors, win tonight.